The running of the 145th Kentucky Derby ended at 6 minutes before 7 on the first Saturday in May 2019. The track was a swamp, and a veil of fog hung over Churchill Downs. Light rain fell intermittently as darkness approached.
Maximum Security wins the Kentucky Derby!
A 3-year-old colt named Maximum Security crossed the finish line first, 1 3/4 lengths in front of Country House, a 65-1 long shot closing on the outside. The winner was what we like to call a good story. Less than 5 months before the Derby, Maximum Security had run for a claiming tag.
Clear, and he's a debut winner. He's Maximum Security for Jason Service and Gary and Mary West.
He could have been purchased that day at Gulfstream Park for $16,000. Afterward, he rapidly improved. There were whispers on the Churchill Downs backstretch that he had improved a little too rapidly. But those whispers fell silent as the race approached.
They're all in line. We're ready for the start.
They would arise much later and much louder than a whisper.
This is the most far-reaching prosecution of racehorse doping.
In the Derby, Maximum Security took the lead and refused to give it up, digging deep in the home stretch. He was clearly the best horse on the day.
Maximum Security keeps on fighting.
He was owned by Gary and Mary West, who had invested millions in the game without ever collecting its biggest prize.
For Gary and Mary West, so long in the sport, it is the highlight of their racing career.
He was trained by Jason Service, a workaday trainer who had only once qualified a horse to run in the Derby and had never won it.
I mean, I'm like ready to lose it, really. It's just real emotional for me.
And he was ridden by Luis Saez, a 26-year-old Panamanian and rising star, who had also never won the Derby.
Thank you, buddy. Congratulations, Luis. You did it, man. I know you did it. Good job.
3 first-timers in the winner's circle. It was a classic Derby feel-good moment, except it wasn't over at all.
Let's go. So for the first time in the history of the Kentucky Derby, the horse that crossed the line first has been disqualified.
22 minutes after Maximum Security flashed beneath the Twin Spires, he became the first Derby winner disqualified for a violation committed during the running of the race. Country House was declared the winner at the second longest odds in Derby history.
After the objection, Country House at 65-1 wins the Kentucky Derby.
Now a year has passed. In this strangest of springs, the next Derby is scheduled for September.
Derby postponed for the first time since World War II.
We will see if it happens then, and how.
As the coronavirus crisis changes daily life as we know it.
But even as we wait and wonder about the fate of the 146th Kentucky Derby, the outcome of the 145th remains strangely in doubt, written into history only in pencil. Trophies have been presented and checks written. The name Country House is painted in gold letters on a facade above the Churchill Downs saddling paddock.
The Kentucky Derby drama continues. Now the owners of Maximum Security have filed a lawsuit asking a federal court to declare their horse the winner of Kentucky Derby 145.
But a lawyer's brief sits in a courthouse in Ohio, where someday a judge will rule on Gary West's argument that Maximum Security should never have been taken down.
So we didn't really have any alternative legally.
It all began minutes after Maximum Security finished. Far past the line and around the clubhouse turn, Saez pulled up his mount and talked to NBC's Donna Brothers.
Luis, you're the number 7.
He was elated, but then he said this.
When we just came over there to the stretch, he started like getting a little bit scared for this. A lot of people screaming and
So the
and
crowd
this.
noise seemed to bother him.
because he's a baby, you know, he just learning. But then I grab and I control him and I keep fighting because I know he's a real fighter, and thanks God he did it.
It was the first inkling that something had happened.
They can pull you up. That guy, they should take him now, man. You know, second? Yeah. You should take and get put up. For sure.
Not far from Saez, on the backstretch, Jockey Flavien Prat on Country House told his outrider to radio the stewards and ask them to put a hold on the race.
Have a claim of foul, the 20 against the winner.
Something happened to my inside, Prat would say later. He jogged Country House back to the finish line and called the stewards. Jockey John Court, who had ridden Long Range Toddy, did the same. Saez got on the phone too to make his case. The one announcement that stops a racetrack cold boomed over the public address system.
Hold all tickets. Hold all tickets. There's a rider's objection in this race.
On the infield tote board, the word unofficial remained illuminated. We stood in the mud near the finish line, and we stood near the piles of manure in the tunnel. Trainers and jockeys, writers and cameramen. We waited, and minutes passed like hours.
Mike said he doesn't think he got interfered with much, but other horses did.
The Derby had been run every year since 10 years after the end of the Civil War, but it had never seen anything like this.
Keep in mind, there's never been a disqualification from first in the history of the Kentucky Derby.
In a tiny room high above the track, 3 stewards watched the race from 5 angles.
They have to make a decision. Did they see anything that clearly impeded the horse and is something that's worth impacting the result of the race?
Those same angles played on the giant Churchill screen and on television screens across America. This is what they showed. As the field approached the top of the stretch, jockey Tyler Gaffalione maneuvered War of Will toward a narrow hole between Long Range Toddy and Maximum Security. War of Will seemed to be full of run, but you never know because sometimes horses get tired. Suddenly, Maximum Security darted to his outside, forcing both Gaffalione and Court to pull up. Country House was bumped just slightly.
But he definitely went from the 2 path to at least a 3 and maybe the 4 path.
It all happened in a heartbeat. After the incident, Saez steered Maximum Security back to the rail, where he discouraged Code of Honor and jockey John Velasquez from advancing further. War of Will struggled to finish 8th. Long Range Toddy lost interest and fell back to 17th. Country House clomped up in 2nd, never threatening Maximum Security. After those 22 minutes, the race went official.
There's been a disqualification. The new order of finish, number 20 Country House first. Yes! Number 13.
Oh my God! We just won the Kentucky Derby!
Maximum Security had been disqualified. A collective gasp rose into the sky, followed by a persistent chorus of boos. Millions had been bet on Maximum Security. Millions now lost.
They took him right off the board!
In the mud, Country House's trainer, Bill Mott, sheepishly tried to explain how it felt to have a Derby win handed to him.
I don't really like to win this way.
Service tried to explain how it felt to have one taken away.
It hasn't hit me yet, I'm sure. It'll probably affect me for a long time.
A discomforting murmur hung in the air. The stewards had made the correct decisions, disqualifying horse and rider for a dangerous move that could have turned tragic. But in the hours, weeks, and months that followed, the outcome was put under a microscope. Questions were asked. Why had Gaffalione not claimed foul against Saez?
We need to hear from the jockey that was impeded the most, and that's Tyler Gaffalione on War of Will.
His answer? Because it would only have elevated him from 8th place to 7th. Why had the stewards not illuminated the inquiry light without first hearing from the riders?
They looked at exactly what the whole rest of the world looked at, and they didn't file a steward's inquiry.
They have never explained why. And this. Where is the justice in awarding the most prized trophy in American racing to a horse who wasn't fouled and who never would have reached the line first? There is no easy answer for that one, except that rules were followed and decisions were made.
This is NBC Nightly News.
The story lives on. Gary West first filed a lawsuit. It was dismissed. He has appealed.
Maximum Security's co-owner called it the most egregious disqualification in the history of horse racing.
It's possible his quest ends in some distant future at the U.S. Supreme Court.
This morning, more than 24 racehorse trainers, veterinarians, and others have all been charged in a massive horse doping bust.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Berman, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Today, we announce criminal charges against racehorse trainers Jorge Navarro and Jason Service.
In March, Service was one of the trainers indicted on federal charges for trafficking in illegal drugs that were given to their horses, including Maximum Security, although not specifically in the Kentucky Derby.
Just last week, Maximum Security won a major race in the Middle East.
Maximum Security is the winner of the inaugural Saudi Cup. The horse that will be remembered for a race he lost will now be remembered for a race he won.
The $10 million purse that Maximum Security earned for winning the Saudi Cup in February has been withheld.
What a story for Jason Service.
Service has pled not guilty. Maximum Security is taking an extended break and is expected to race again under a new trainer, Bob Baffert. Country House, meanwhile, never ran again. He became ill with a virus in the days following his unlikely Derby win and later struggled with injuries. He was retired in February after a bout with laminitis threatened his life. And this is where we are, 1 year later. A Derby champion, never quite respected. A disqualified winner, now disgraced. A controversial race in the mud under a weeping spring sky, still not finished.